we'll have a couple minutes for people to show up as well. But yeah, I just want to go ahead and start that conversation. Does anybody have kind of ideas of what they think are priorities for the commons? And I really want to emphasize the commons level of things that you've seen, things that we need to improve on, things that like initiatives that we should focus on this upcoming sprint. And I guess Manu, I'll let if you're ready to like kind of explore that, since you've already kind of kicked the ball off.
Yeah.
Is that something that you want to explore, or like is there anything that you want to actually do?
Yeah. Well, I'm still working on the specifics, but generally it goes on to it uses the concept of the holon, which is holons are like atoms, molecules, cells, and it's a thing that are they are autonomous and independent units, but must always be aware of other units around them. So they're both a part and a whole, right? Um, and like a collection of holons is a holarchy, and so it's biomimetic in that sense. And so um, what I'm exploring is, okay, how can we, um, based it on a book called The Holonic Revolution, Holons, Holarchies, and Holonic Networks in the production machine. And so what I'm trying to explore, and it's barely it's early stages, but um, I'm thinking that um, if we frame ourselves as holons, like each one of us, and also like the working units, they're both like a part and a whole, and each individual contributor is both a part and a whole. And in itself, like the TEC is both a part and a whole if we take into account the broader ecosystem. We're with T Academy and Common Stack and One Hive and whatnot. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm uh, theorizing that if we find a way to integrate like the critical tasks that we have to perform, which we have some data from the proposals and the roles that they proposed, even the ones that did not pass or the roles that got eliminated. So we got some feedback there that we can use. Um, and moving forward with that, taking that into account, taking uh, the current active contributors that we have, also take into account the limitations or the constraints for treasury, and coming up with some sort of like um, complex adaptive system model that takes all that into account. And as luck would have it, I think it's something that can be modeled with CAD, so that we can somehow see, okay, how much value we're producing. And I guess would be tricky. Another research is I'm doing is going into value theory. Like there's the term value gets thrown around a lot, but I think we need to really break it down into there's value in there's value in economics, which is I think what we often refer to, but there's also value in sociology, which we have that with let's say the praise ritual, right? There's value in philosophy. There's value in all these other things. So maybe we not only provide a value economically, but also provide other types of value, people would be more receptive towards receiving a salary that is within our ability, but aggregated onto the other things, it would be a pretty good offer for them. So, but that's something else. That's value theory. In terms of holons, I'm just um, basically trying to tie all that together, and I'll see how uh, how we take into account also the new income generation tools that we're working on, be that the token gated uh, channel and the Twitter scraping bot that we can prepare in certain format and then present to the community and maybe charge or make it token gated, introduce it in the initiative that we're currently working on. But I think if we solve this problem of moving away from bounties into a system that is more holistic, integrating the active contributors, maybe even the hours that they want to work, the roles that are critical for the functioning of the commons, and the limitations of the treasury, and somehow put all that in a model, maybe help us with cat to somehow come up with a solution for it. Again, I'm still working on the specifics and all of that, but I do think that if we solve that problem for ourselves, like you said yesterday, the thing about coming up with utilities that hasn't been solved, and this wouldn't be solving that utility, but it would be solving. I think it would help in the sense of integrating the integrating all the components of a value production network within a DAO, and maybe even also from the broader ecosystem. I don't know, but I don't know if I'm making sense. It's still abstract because I'm still beginning to research it. I just, from what I know, and again, it's biomimetic. It agrees with, uh, the tenets of common stack in a way, and other things that we all agree is the right way forward. So, in theory, it ought to work. In practice, I don't know. I'm still working on it, but I don't. Did that somehow make sense, Nate?
No, it does. Like, and that's the thing is like if you throw an idea out and we vote on it and say, hey, this is what we want to try. Like, I want to be able to experiment it within the sprint planning processes. I don't want it to just be like normal. Here, here's the constant thing we're going through. So, um, yeah, thank you for that. Baird or Auntie, did you want to? You guys have an ideas for prioritization of, and I'm using this document. I'm going to start building this document up to have kind of this ideation so we can start building epics out of them. And then, using them from ideas to build epics around. So this is kind of the way I imagine this going. So if you are interested, please do. What's up, Chewy?
Hey, true GM. Um,
Hey, GM, everybody.
I wanted to jump in there. I have two or three things. The first one, expanding on what Manu said, because we were just chatting about it. I don't know if you remember, Nate, when a few months ago when I shared the uh, synchronous management HackMD, the small document I did, that you said something about we us having contributors sort of just really spread out and doing a lot of things, and if they were more focused on just one working group or so, we would probably be better off. And I think that's most important now, more important now, and finding a way to. I'm assuming that's going to be through compensation, but finding ways to make contributors just try to focus and deliver as much value as possible um, on a specific thing, because I see a lot of people in a lot of things, and I sense that's first of all making all of us like we are losing focus, and then it's probably making also management a bit expensive because there's a lot of micromanagement to do with bounties, hours, etc., and that costs money anyways. Um, so that's that, and then I don't know how we would work towards this, but this week on SoftGov we chatted about the recent changes and how these are probably going to affect our culture and the people that spend time here, whether that's just hanging out or working, and I guess just making sure that everyone is comfortable and preventing uh, and sort of working on a prevention to not fall into a moment where we start not being as kind to each other, because at least in my personal experience in other projects, when we start to when the economics are scarce and start constantly to get to like we aren't clear as to when are we going to make money. And so I believe there may be a point where we just have enough for one idea or two, and we can get into a heavy discussion from competing ideas. And I just want to make sure that when that time comes, we are in, we know how to handle that.
Sure, that's great. And how about you, Bear?
Yeah, I have a couple of ideas. But I think personally, what I would feel most relevant in this moment is this revisiting of, or maybe creation of the narrative of the TEC. I think this is something that has been discussed before, and I do still believe that it's relevant, because it's basically what drives us, right? What would drive all the contributors, all the contributions, all the initiatives. They are all based on a narrative, and maybe as a first approach on doing this, it's also maybe like revisiting the MVV, the mission, vision, values of the TEC, and really nailing it down, like really clarifying and being really precise with definitions, with concepts, with ideas, with of ideas of like of what we are, right? Because I feel like sometimes there's this confusion and misconception of, like we are a company, but we are a commons, but we're an organization, but we're a community, right? So really like getting consensus on that, I think that would give us like a really strong basis of in order to take like further steps, right? um yeah, I think that would be something. And then another thing, because like I think this is like a big thing, and uh, according to what you're mentioning, Nate, I think the idea is great. Like people showing up here in the spring planning and working together towards a specific epic. I think that's a great idea. I wouldn't be sure if this like narrative creation and MVV would be something that we could maybe like do just like that. I don't think it would be that simple. So, but again, this is just like one of the ideas, and then the other idea is more about simplifying things, simplification of things. I remember Levy during a one softgov call, she mentioned that she heard somewhere um, uh, something that really gave her comfort about trying to make things simpler, like not overcomplicate and try to make things really complex, but just like try to make things easy to understand for everyone. So maybe there could be a simplification process and structure for the whole TEC, and we could talk about like the working groups that we have, or this idea of having interest groups, and how can this play out with the whole organization. And maybe even like the restructuring the Discord server, right? Maybe there are ways to make it simpler, having less channels, less information, being more concise, being more precise, just like making things simpler in all terms, even for contributors themselves, right? Trying to I think here what you're doing, of like trying to give it a purpose to the sprint planning, and how are we going to use SendHub, and all of these questions. I think we should really focus on making it like as simplest as we can, especially for like this stage we are, that this might be a little complicated. So yeah, I just think those could be some ideas.
Oh, thank you, Bear. That was really great. And Chewy, you are me and you are the last one. So Chewy, if just to explain what we're doing here, coming up with ideas on what the epic for this sprint planning is going to be. The idea is that the people in this room who are doing sprint planning are going to establish their priorities for what we're doing in the next 2 weeks. And we're going to come up with ideas, and then we're going to decide on which ideas to prioritize, and then figure out how to execute on those ideas as a fundamental group. And then we come back and look at the retrospective next week. So if you have any ideas about the commons, on how to improve the commons and what directions you think are priorities right now in this current moment, please share them.
Yes, Nate, thank you. I think that like there's, I wouldn't call it like current situation really, because it's been going on for like many months. So I feel that by now there's like a new like reality around the TEC, and I do think it is necessary that probably as I start like reapproaching everything and like getting an idea of how everything is running, I would like to have initiatives to like maybe see how we can bring down comms to probably like 4 or 5 people and just make like one like core team, because I think that Teams has been like a learning experience. I mean, some really cool things like came out of it. Some other things didn't really work. So I would feel very comfortable with having this approach where we can optimize resources for at least the next year. I do think that we have the resources. It's just a matter of revising them. Personally, I'm trying to. I mean, and this again like comes back to like the whole like funding and challenges that the TEC is going through. As most of you remember, like for the part of stewardship, I requested like funding until the month of November. But after the first month, and because I was also working in other projects, I wanted to delegate this to Manu and Acid Laser in different functions. I feel that this experiment was also like that really put a light on just like ways in which we can diversify our functions. So based on this, I think that we have the means to like bring it down to what's necessary to keep running in the next months, and at the same time like and going back to like this like personal point of view, I want to explore and find ways in which I can still contribute like as a steward in the TEC, but not creating more dependence around the TEC. So I think that most stewards are like in this like let's say like mindset, and it took me a little bit longer to adapt to that, but because of how things have been going in the past few months, I see like income opportunities in other areas in which I can still contribute in the TEC, and have a functional communications team, and also like keep doing outreach to different communities, as well as promotion. But there needs to be a conversation and just like a general assessment of what did we learn with the Teams experiment, and just like, I mean, I don't want to like speak generally. Of course, I would love to do like temperature check with the different teams, but I would really like to like just see like how does it feel, like should we like is it my opinion, or is it something that is shared, this idea about just taking like teams to the next level, and maybe if that if that consists of like putting an end to it and just like changing the structure. I feel that it's the right time, but I would really like to have as much input as possible from the team's contributors. So, I feel good about what Inti and Bear were saying, and I do feel that it brings us to a similar place. I may be wrong about it, but it was really like good to see like all of these points before I share this opinion, because I already had this in my mind. So yeah, this is what I can say about this.
Thanks, Julie. Yeah. And so I guess I'll go now. I think I've got two big areas where I think would be really good to focus on in the upcoming kind of sprint, and that is education is one of those things. I would really like to see us providing a service for the DAO space in terms of educating individuals on how to work in a DAO, how to operate in a DAO. How do we, each and every one of us has a specific skill set that we've come to the TEC with, and go ahead, Manu. Sorry.
I just like on that note. I think in terms of providing education service, I agree, and it was something that I was going to say. It was something that Sampo. I don't know if we talked about this yesterday. Certainly, I did privately with some other people.
Yeah.
That Sampo wanted to, or we wanted to provide some sort of education service in the context, of course, of token engineering, but we approached Angela to sort of like ask her if we could, like, if there was any overlap with T Academy, like, sort of like, and she asked us not to, or she asked us to wait, or well, she asked Gideon to wait, and she didn't quite explain her reasoning, which is it's her prerogative. So I think in that sense, like there's somewhat of a blocker there that, and I said this yesterday. Look, I don't think we're gonna be cannibalizing, or it's a blue ocean market we're in. Like there's enough space for two whales to operate. I I also brought to Gideon the fact that on Udemy, there's a course. There are no courses on token engineering. If you type on the search bar, there's one course that pops up, but it's like very sort of it's Web3. It's sort of like just explaining Web3 and blockchain and crypto on a very basic scale, and that has thousands of. I think it had like 2,000 students, and based on what it was asking for, or what the course went through, it was like it generated an income of several $1,000s, and so that was like, whoa, like there's really good opportunity to generate income here, and it seems that Gideon already thought about that. She asked Angela, and she didn't want to, so like I don't know, like do we need like is she sort of like I mean, I understand bouncing it off of her, but is she like the godmother that we need to sort of like?
When it comes to actual token engineering courses, I think yes, but I'm more focused like on like a kind of like a how to DAO type of situation education course where we can educate people on what we know and what we do on a daily basis. And then that accents her token engineering efforts. And so if there's like a bunch of token engineering courses that are there, we can say, hey, you know how to DAO. Go look at these token engineering courses, see if you're interested, or vice versa. Hey, everybody who just took this token engineering course, now you can go work in a project. But look, come learn how it works in a DAO, how we operate, how you can expect if you go to Bankless DAO, how you can expect things to operate, what things to look for, how to look for documentation, how to understand voting, how to understand all these different aspects that you are going to use your token engineering education and apply it to it and understand the environment that you're going to be working in. And so like I think having that type of like how to DAO education would be really interesting and necessary for not just token engineering, but just individual contributors that are entering into the Web3 space. And so that's kind of my big idea for that, and having, you know, that can kind of be an offering that the TEC has, and it will bring human capital into the space, you know, and if people want to stick around, they can help contribute to the TEC. But at the end of the day, I would love for everybody who comes through that type of course to go to another DAO, to go work at another DAO, to go to Bankless, to go to, you know, Gnosis, to go to any other DAO that exists and say, hey, I was trained over at the TEC on how to DAO. Maybe I have we have certain education areas in like comms or whatever it may be, or like community.
I have graphics for that.
Yeah, and so like building a comprehensive education program here in the TEC where we have cohorts, you know, and we do this like monthly education thing, I think would be a really big start to actually bringing in human capital, and could really kind of jumpstart the TEC Discord again, and making sure that we have a lot of action going on. Outside of that, outside of the education, the other area is really focused on kind of what a big area that we've all covered so far, and that is figuring out how to organize ourselves to where we are more productive as the units. And I know that we have. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, on the education, like before we move to another point, I met on ETH Mexico, doing some networking. I met this company called Blockchain Acceleration Foundation. They were sponsoring an event near a cafe by where they did the hackathon, and basically they have sort of like the system that they have is they provide an interface to students within a university for them to learn about Web3, right? So the problem is that students want to learn about Web3 and crypto and even token engineering, but the universities are not offering the courses, right? So they go to the university and they're like, hey, you know, we can, you know, help you if you partner with us, if you partner with us, give us some money for us to teach the course. We can teach your students, and we can structure it in a way that you can actually, like, there can be credits for it. Like, it would be a legitimate way for your students to learn, and there can be credits that can work towards the diploma that your students are learning. And so usually,
I'll just point out that there are some universities like Antioch University. I've taught a master's course in autism to one person because they actually had the ability for whoever it is to just choose who they wanted to teach them in whatever topic. So you might want to look out there. There are other universities around. I'm just letting you know that Antioch University specifically is one I've done work with already, and you could actually get college credit for that. And so maybe we could, create a working group to try to find groups like that.
Yeah, that's what they were doing, and I was like, wow, that's something we could do, because they get paid a lot for them to teach to their students, right? And so what they do is they partner with student organizations as a sort of like compromise, because maybe at universities they're like, I don't know, like it's sketchy, like I don't know if we want to teach our students, I don't know if the industry is ready yet, whatever. And so they partner with student organizations, and they get, I think what they did is they partner with student organization, and they had Polygon sponsor the course, and of course they teach about Web3 and how to DAO, they also teach about layer 2 and Polygon and how to build on Polygon, right? So I think we could take a page out of that and do that. I'm certainly up for the task of going to TEC de Monterrey and other like regional universities that have like national validation and are like really good universities within Mexico, and that can be done.
No, I would say like public universities would be actually a better approach, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay, we can do public. Yeah.
For sure, but so one of the aspects of this is that if we did something like this, I think cohorts would work really well, and this would be very similar to how the IEEE operates their organization for standards is that they don't have many employees, but they have a lot of students. They have a lot of students who contribute to the IEEE because it's a learning opportunity, because it's kind of like this internship. It looks good. And so having that type of model is really interesting to me for the Web3 space, and being that place to go to for that type of education and that type of experience. And so if we could have these cohorts come in and have each working group have kind of like, in like the NASA internships, you go into a cohort, and basically you have a collective project that you're working on that is dictated by, the NASA. And so like we could have those types of things where we have this initiative for newcomers who are just learning how to DAO, how to learn how to work with each other within this 1 month time frame, and set out those agendas and objectives for them. And then
I think we just need to be sure that we're not confusing token engineering with how to DAO. Those are two completely different I mean, we're using them how to DAO to do a particular kind of engineering, but there's a lot of ways to DAO that wouldn't do that. Do you know what I'm saying? So I just want to make sure that we're not mixing.
And speaking of it, to save time, I wanted to say, Durgadas, we were going through, and I just want to, if you could propose a single idea that you think should be prioritized for the commons during this sprint.
I think we should do what we're talking about now. Create a culture handbook for for people. So not just onboarding to token engineering, but onboarding to why is it DAOs exist at all? Do you know what I'm saying? What is the underlying cultural, mimetic that requires that DAOs exist these days, right? And so,
yep.
I have something real quick on the education. I'm starting to feel a bit skeptical about that for various reasons. So I think on one point for the sprint would be defining the TEC's partnerships, because I think there's a lot of things unclear. And so for the education, for example, I remember in one call we weren't talking about like a proper education program, but we were talking about the TEC sort of sharing and sharing about how we operate the DAO and our culture and stuff. And someone said, well, that's common stacks. But then if we sort of jump into token engineering communication, well, that's the academy. And I'm not sure of our relation with common stack, but our relation with the academy is a mess right now. And that's
praise General Magics. Yeah, sorry.
Oh well, yeah, that's probably another point. So, probably I like the idea of the education, and it could be sort of disguised as an onboarding process where we teach people as a means to onboard them. But as far as education, we're going to be we have our hands tied in a lot of things, not only education, in a lot of projects we've been trying to work on, because we don't have our we are dependent on a lot of people in other organizations, and we don't even know how we interact with them and what are the boundaries.
I think defining those boundaries are important, but I'm on that level of like we can't worry about what other people want us or don't want us to do.
Absolutely.
We need to focus on what's best for this community and culture. Like, let's be respectful of like their efforts and their initiatives. We do not want to be extractive of their efforts. That's for sure. Like I wouldn't want to start any education that is focused on token engineering specifically, because I know for a fact that Token Engineering Academy is focusing on that area. But when it comes to other education like DAOs and stuff like that, that's fine. Let's do that. Let's start building these initiatives. I think tiptoeing around.
Stack is a commons. We're a commons. The Gravity DAO that we're starting is a commons. I mean, I'm pushing common stuff, with 40 acres DAO and, commons. That's my whole thing, right? So it's the root of the whole
Yeah.
You know.
And so right now, this document that I have right now, these are the ideas that we've put forward. And if we could go around real quick, and I just want everybody to quickly just say a pro and a con about each one of those, and just state your ideas for those. Preventing cultural conflicts is going to be the first one.
Gravity.
Yep. What is it when it comes to pros? Like, what is it? Something tangible that we can do, and cons is like why this shouldn't be a priority. Does anybody want to take a stab at it?
I can. So a pro or a way we could approach it is, of course, gravity, as Lerga said, but also um, just um, monitoring how we interact and making sure there's no discussion that escalates to the point where it becomes an issue. And a con would be that we may not need it right now, and we can probably use the time for other stuff. But the time to prevent that is unclear, so that's probably a con. I don't know. Should I pass the word or
Yeah, pass it.
okay? Let's go for Choi. Why not?
So it's pros and cons of every every topic.
Yeah.
Okay, so preventing cultural conflicts. I feel that sticking to like similar processes isn't a bad idea. I feel that working groups like Gravity and SoftGov already offer like really cool elements for preventing these kinds of conflict. However, I do think that a con at this point is that this aspect of our culture has been sadly like dependent on like budgets and stuff like this. So sometimes it's kind of tough. But I do feel that this by itself should be like a topic of conversation with the rest of the community, because assuming that preventing cultural conflicts is invaluable, I personally think it's a mistake. Because if the community decides it together, that's like one thing. But if people think that cultural conflicts in preventing them are valuable, it should be up to like everyone else. So I do feel that if people think that this should be a priority, I would be like okay with it. Although I do feel that it falls like on kind of like shaky grounds when it comes to like deciding on what needs to like keep moving forward. Should I go to the next topic, or just this one is?
Yeah, we can actually just go ahead and go to the next topic. So I'm going to break it into these 4 different topic areas because these are all kind of similar. So the next one is creation of the TEC narrative and revisiting the MVV.
Pros, I feel that it helps us explore different ideas, especially around Sampo's work. Cons, definitely not something like convenient at this moment. Because like narrative is also like in a way a public good, and there's value around public goods. However, like the like I don't think it could be like a good moment for like deciding like, oh yeah, we want to change like the core, we want to change the very thing that has been keeping us here like for so long. So I feel that doing it in times like this might be a little bit overwhelming and just like a community burnout in general. So I think it might not be the better moment. I'll pass it to someone else, just so that someone else gets like the chance to talk, and then I can come back to the last two topics, if that's okay.
That's perfect. Let's do the first two topics. So who do you want to pass it to?
I'm sorry, I was muted. I'll pass it to Manu.
Thanks, Chewy. Are we still on the first two topics?
Yep. So if you want to go through all four, we can go through all four. The entire purpose of this is just to kind of get all of our arguments out on what we should prioritize. And then once we have the arguments out, then we'll kind of vote on which ones that we're going to focus on. And then we'll build the epic.
Yeah. Try to be concise so I can go through all four of them. So in terms of preventing cultural conflicts, the pros is that we already have Gravity doing that, and it is generating income from other DAOs consulting with us and seeking training with us, and maybe even hiring Gravitons. It'd be interesting, I guess, an aside would be, it'd be interesting if, as other working groups get ways to generate income, if maybe the majority of that income goes to that working group multisig, but a small fraction of it goes sort of like into the common pool, either to fund other projects or to fund other working groups. That'd be interesting. But I mean, that's I guess a conversation for another time. Cons. Cons is, I'd say that it's not. It doesn't tackle the, maybe indirectly, but it doesn't tackle directly the issue of economic scarcity and generating more resources for us to either quicken our pace, pay more to contributors, or just do more work and become faster. So it's like, yeah, it's focusing on the cultural aspect, which I don't want to diminish. But like at this time, maybe like the cultural aspect is suffering because of economic issues that perhaps ought to be addressed so that they trickle down onto cultural climate. So that's that. The creation of TC narrative and revisiting of the MBV. Pros is that I'm somehow already working on that with the video that I'm doing for the marketing team within comms. Somehow the I guess in sort of like a Shelling point kind of way, I took the title is "The Revolution Will Not Be Tokenized," and sort of like the conclusion is that it will not be tokenized because it's not a revolution, it's evolution. And it is really taking a page out of Griff's talk at ETH Barcelona. But it throws a curveball on people because there's a lot of articles out there on revolution will be tokenized, like, and it's also placed on the television. The revolution will not be televised. You know, the very famous spoken word poem from the 70s. But I guess the product would be that I'm already working on that and creating like an emotional narrative that goes deeper than just a technical aspect of bonding curves and conviction voting and protocols and that. So the cons would be that, again, it's not as, yeah, like I would agree with you, like not convenient right now or not as impactful in terms of the current issues that we have. Simplification of process, communication structure, reduce comms to a core team, optimize resource allocation, new compensation model for contributors. Yeah, well, the process, I already have a theory for it that I'm working on a research that unfortunately Chewy missed my monologue, but I think we can really use biomimicry or biomimetism and look at how nature organizes their value production networks, and taking the idea of holons and holarchies and how they are both a whole and a part. That's how our bodies, that's how they manage resource. You have a cell, and it can be it's its own thing, but if it's a cell within the heart, then it's part of the heart, but it's its own thing. So I think we can mimic that from contributors, from working groups, and from our DAO. They're both wholes and parts of a larger ecosystem. And if we integrate all of that into a model, and we even can use CAD as a tool to model, the value that we're producing in terms of maybe income generation or increasing demand for the token, the constraints that we have in terms of the treasury, the hours that active contributors have to offer. I would say that it's the most impactful. The problem is that it's not the most impactful. And if we solve it for ourselves, we can provide that service to other DAOs, and it can generate income, right? So really, the problems or the challenges that we have, if we solve them or if we progress onto them, we can sell that knowledge, or we can use that knowledge to derive income. And wouldn't that be poetic justice, right? The cons is that it's easier said than done, right? Like, again, it's just a theory, and there's a lot of things within DAOs or technology that might not be akin to nature. So will it work? I don't know. I think it's worth a shot, though. So realistically, um, yeah, the cons would be, yeah, it's complex. It's complex, and there's no yeah. So the cultural handbook for onboarding to Web3 DAOs, education offering from the TC, and defining TC partnerships. Okay, so the education offering from the TC, again, it would generate income, and it would be sort of like the happy fusion between degen and regen, in a way that we would be keeping true to our mission, vision, and values, and we advancing token engineering through education, through an education product or service, and at the same time we would be preserving ourselves, or addressing the economic scarcity that right now is trickling down into cultural aspects, and lack of people contributing, and slower pace. Um, Cultural handbook. Yeah, the cultural handbook. I mean, one of the things we pride ourselves in was the cultural build, right? And the rituals that we have, such as praise and things like that. So we would be staying true to our founding principles, uh, uh, in spite of the bear market and the economic issues, that are plaguing us right now. Defining TC partnerships. Yeah, I think I was actually thinking about expanding sort of like the marketing team into also business development, because maybe in theory, uh, Communitas uh, was doing some of that in terms of outreach to people or to token holders, but we're not doing like proper business development as I think we could be doing, and that would imply defining the partnerships and delimiting, like, okay, like praises from General Magic, how can we monetize it or can we not? This is from Common Stack, can we do something about it? Can we not? T Academy, like, can we, like, how can we provide some token engineering service without uh, you know without sort of like going into your lane and somehow cannibalizing your product or whatever. So con I don't know. I don't have. I mean, I'm
That's
spent.
no worries. Yeah. Yeah. No. If you want to pass it, please do.
Yeah, I do want to pass it. I want to pass it to Durgadas.
So I would want to reframe the preventing cultural conflicts to ritualizing cultural conflicts, specifically using liberating structures. I would want to basically train all of the people who want to be stewards, because I think what we were talking about was sort of revisiting the idea of stewardship to be more like people who are facilitators. And so if we're going to do that, then we need to increase people's facilitation skills. So creation of the TEC narrative, everything else falls underneath the creation of the TEC narrative. So revisiting the MVV, that for me is just is like the evolution of how we deal with each other. We've got curated material. We work through that curated material. Now we're in a bear market, and we have to revise that, right? So again, I made a graphic for that actually, speaks to how that whole deal works. I don't know if you guys have seen this before, but the so it just seems like we're here looking at how whatever we'd previously outlined and promoted and dealt with isn't working for us anymore, so we got to redo it, right? So we got to go through the process of iterating or evolving, right? And in order to do that, we need participation and co-creation. So anyway, so then the cons are it's a cultural thing. People actually have to learn things. You have so I think that the cons of all of these really are that it's going to require education, and for the people who have been leading up to now to become willing to change and be different internally to make all of these things sort of go. So
Yeah, and so if there's nothing that jumps out at you, there's no worries either.
Well, the cultural handbook, a pro for that would be, it's increases attraction potentially as a revenue source, especially if we. I know when I taught the course with Antioch, it was, I made $750 out of that. So, if we could have, revenue source from I think it would be a popular thing to Web3 and DAO thing for any university, really. I think people are really interested in it. The con is you have to actually pick the right people, right? So so if you got somebody who's got a limited viewpoint, or mostly focused on the money or the engineering or something, right? Maybe that's not the best thing. So I don't know, is cultural handbook education and defining TEC partnerships, all of those are the same thing?
Yeah, it kind of in the same realm. Yeah, so
okay.
Yeah,
we'll
right. Further define it if
okay.
This is the area we want to focus on.
Okay, so yeah, that's for me, the defining characteristic of our thing is the culture, right? So that for me is always going to be the thing that we should be promoting. But I understand that token engineers might feel differently about that, because we do a good job of that too. So, but
Yeah. You want to pass it on to us?
Culture.
Yeah, NT.
Well, I just did the first one, but if Bear wants to go
Oh, sorry,
first and
I
have a
meant to
chance
say
to talk,
Bear. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, thank you. So for the first one, I don't know if it would be like a pro or a con. Maybe it's just more like a comment for utilizing cultural conflicts. I think maybe it would be important to, just as we are thinking about like analyzing and reassessing our partnerships with the academy, with external organizations, maybe to do the same thing with Gravity and its relationship with the TEC, and how is that gonna look like right now in the present, but also like in the future, according to the plans they have of expanding and becoming their own thing, their own DAO, right? So how is that gonna play out in terms of the managing and all of these ritualizing practices that we would implement in the TEC? So I would be curious on explore that. That I think it would be, we could call it a partnership, right, in the future between Gravity and the TEC, to have more clear boundaries and bases. Yeah, similar to what Manu said also about in terms of the money, right, of the funds that some of the working groups use here, and then they use to expand and become their own thing. How is that relationship gonna affect the TEC in the future? So that would be that for that one, the first one. Then the creation of the TEC narrative. Yeah, I keep thinking that if we don't set like a clear base on these things, everything we build upon that might not be as strong as it could be. I think there's still a lot of confusion and with the concepts and these ideas, for example, like of a shilling point, right? I think like a lot of people might not know what it is, and then the people that know, they might just have like a particular idea of what it is, right? Like different definitions for that. So yeah, I think it's really important to do this in order to the following projects and initiatives that we have. For example, if we decide to go for this educational offering, that is really aligned to what we're saying in our MVV, and that is really following the narrative that we've traced, right? Because if not, this is going to be, and this is kind of like a con for me, like for the educational offering for onboarding to Web3, it's like we are the TEC, Token Engineering Commons, but people will come here not to get the education on token engineering, but on how to DAO, right? I'm not saying it's wrong, right? I think it's good and we should offer that, but then that might require maybe an adjustment on the narrative and on the MBV of what we are actually offering. Maybe our offering is changing, right? So adjust according to that, and also to, because if we don't revisit this and create the narrative, I feel that then it's really easy for projects and initiatives to come up and just like take a different path, and this is something that had happened right before, that is like they just go in their own path and they don't really are aligned with what the TEC is looking for. So I'm afraid that if we don't like set this base strong, that could keep happening again and again. So yeah, that I, as a cons in that part, yeah, I don't think it's easy. I would disagree that it's not a convenient moment. I think it would be a good moment to do it, especially because we are like in a slow times. I feel that whenever it's gonna get like busier here and more people joining, it's gonna get even harder to get consensus and to get everyone on board with the same narrative and with the same MPV. But at the same time, we also need to involve the community in this decision, right? So it's kind of like it is a complex task, but I think it's completely worth it. Then for the simplification of processes and all of this, yeah, I think it's it's also part of this, right? For me, that would be like the second stage in terms of priority. I think there's a lot of work to do that. That would be probably like a con, that it's a lot of work and a lot of complex decisions to be taken. But as a pro, I think it's needed, right? Either we do it right now or we do it later. I think the sooner we do it will be easier and better for the community. So yeah, that's a priority. And for the last one, I think it's a great idea. I think, I don't think we should be stopped doing things because others are doing something similar or the same. We shouldn't just restrict ourselves from trying on new things. And I mean, I think it's a great idea to have this and start working on this education offering. I think the how to DAO is one idea, but also yesterday in the sample conversation I heard this. I think Durga has mentioned this, maybe like a course or like a program on how to be a steward, right? I think that would be also a really, really interesting course educational offering that we could have. And the cons is that for me, like, it wouldn't be like the super priority. I think I would take the two previous ones before than this one. But I mean, if we could do it all at once, it would be great, right? But that would be for me. I don't think there's anyone left. Maybe I pass it back to you, Nate, for your comments.
Yeah, and so we have BFA and Rather Mercurial here, and I really want to just state that I want to appreciate everybody for taking part in this kind of experimental process that I'm trying to establish, and I think that if we can kind of further define this later on to make it a little bit more focused, and for the next sprint, I think that would be really good. I'm going to go ahead and give my pros and cons right now, and then I'll pass it to BFA and Rather Mercurial. If you have any comments on these topic areas and what should be prioritized, the pros and cons of each, then please share that with us. So the ritualizing cultural conflicts, I think, is a really good idea. I think having a space for conflict, kind of getting, it's a tough time for a lot of people, and there's a lot of uncertainty, and being able to answer those questions and those concerns for people is really important, and holding a space for that is really important. And so I think it's a really good idea, and I believe that Durgas mentioned facilitating skills among our stewards is something that we should prioritize. The cons, we do have, other priorities at the moment. I don't know if it's a priority for me as well. The next one, creation of TEC narrative and revisiting MVV. I think this is probably the most important thing we can do at the moment. I think
Sorry, guys, I gotta go.
Yep, thank you. This is where we can be aligned. The cons for this is that, there's a lot of people on vacation, and to do it within this next sprint, it would require community input and involvement, and I don't think it's kind of a doable thing. Simplification of process and kind of our organizational structure, how we can remain sustainable from that perspective, is highly important. I think the pros for this is that we can start to redefine how we work with each other. I think that's kind of the process that we're looking at, as Tui mentioned in comms, how we can have a core team. But the cons to this is, like, how do we do this and stay permissionless? How do we get contributors and keep them engaged? And the last one, of course, is the education aspect, which I'm a big fan of, but it's a big task. It's not an easy thing, and defining TEC partnerships is a huge plus in that area. So I'll pass it to BFA. If you have any comments or thoughts on these topics, please do share. All right. I'll give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. BFA, if you're talking, you're on mute. If not, I will pass it to Rather Mercurial. If you have any thoughts, please share.
Hey, I don't have any comments or anything other than you guys have a great vibe in this group, and I like your meeting structure. Pretty awesome. Thanks for letting me listen in.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so go ahead, Inti.
I just did the first point, and I wanted to do the rest very quickly. So the creation of the TC narrative and revisiting the mission, vision, and values. Um, I think the points are really great points, and I believe we should do that. Um, I am a bit skeptical as well, to Chuy's point on the moment. And Bear said something about times being quiet, but that also means that we will have less input, and we will probably have, like, like this really wide view of the TC from all the people that should have a say in that. So that's probably a con on the timing, or I don't know. Simplification of processes, and this comes to core team composition models in focus. I think that's great too, and we need it. For what I said at the beginning of the call, I think there's many benefits to that, as far as budget, especially because we are trying to spend as little as possible, but also the stability of the people contributing here, and the efficiency of the people here too. For the education, that's the one I wanted to touch. The pros, well, I believe it's a nice initiative overall. And defining TC partnerships, I think it's probably top priority just after the revisiting the MBB. The cons is that I don't like, as great as it is. I wouldn't want ourselves to have, or to start, or to just spread ourselves in initiatives that aren't directly tied to talking engineering, because I think that we oftentimes want to do everything, and we are here for a special purpose. Um, and if there are limited resources, we should focus on what's our priority, which is talking engineering. And I was also going to say that I'm not sure in which point, because I think there's an overlap to a few of them, but I find really surprising that we don't have casual talking engineers join our community. Not like working, but I don't think we've built a space where talking engineers can just hang out. I don't think there's much for them to just be on the TC and spend time. In contrast with, for example, I think here the academy has been doing a great job where a token engineer can either participate in a study group or can host a study group. Um, and we should probably do better on having more input from token engineers, having more token engineers just participate, just, I don't know, something in here for them. And that's it. Back to you, Nate.
No, thank you. That's really awesome. So the way I envision this going is that we each kind of have a vote. So I'll start with Bear, and what I would like you to do is just say what topic area do you want to prioritize on this sprint?
Just a question, Nate. So this
Yep.
sprint, how long is it gonna be? Like the 2 weeks as
Actually,
usual, or is it?
Yep, it's gonna be 2 weeks. But I don't want you to base anything off of that. We'll determine like what type of how much work we put into it based off of. I just want you to prioritize, like, what do you think is the biggest priority for the commons right now?
Okay. Not in
Basically.
terms of timing and planning.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
Okay. So for me, like number one would be like number two there, like creation of the TEC narrative, revisiting the MBB. That's priority number one for me. Number two, simplification of processes, and that third point. Number three, probably the ritualizing cultural conflicts, and really like specifics about that, I think. And then on fourth place, the educational offering. And well, partnerships, I think I would move it maybe to a more priority one, but yeah.
We'll contextualize it.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
And I'm doing it the opposite just because that's how many points this one gets. So,
Okay.
How about you, Inti?
Okay. Well, I'm thinking the TC partnerships should go on the second section, because I think that's I would probably, and so I guess depending on how I sit, I would probably put point number 2 as the first one. Um, and then let me see. Um, number 3, no, yeah, number 3 would go second. Number 1 would go third, and 4 would go last.
Okay. And what about you, Chewy?
Just to add in like really quick points of view regarding number 3 and 4. I like what Durga has mentioned resonated a lot. However, when he says that he considers that a con to that it requires education, I actually feel that it could be a pro, because it can be something like challenging, something that takes some of the community members out of our comfort zones. So actually, I would rate number 3 as the first one. About number 4, I do agree with like the partnerships part, but I feel that the cultural handbook and all of this, like, even though it's something pretty valid that we have to say, I feel that it's just like like I feel that the whole purpose of the TEC is going to be much clearer once we have like a first generation of token engineers that like this is like their shelling point, which is like our objective. But in the meantime, I feel that exploring these things may be a little dispersed. So this is why I wouldn't rate it as the first one. I would rate it probably the second one.
For the cultural handbook and the education?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, my third priority would be number 1, and in the last number 2.
Okay. And
No, I mean, but is it rate like first, like number 1 is the most like the first like order, or the last one?
No, so it'll be this is basically a point system, so your first choice will have the most
Oh,
points.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
And so how about you, Mana?
Yeah, well, actually, yeah, so the number 3 would be my first choice. Number 4 would be my second choice. Yeah, I think I like the rephrasing of, instead of I think managing cultural conflict was the first one, ritualizing. So yeah, yeah, number 1 would be the second one, and the second one would be yeah, like that.
Okay. And then I will go, and I think the narrative one is really important. I will say 3 on this one, and then 2, and 1. And rather mercurial, if you have a vote, you can prioritize this if you'd like. Please do speak up if you would like to.
Oh, I'm not a DAO member. I'm just here to listen. Thank you, though. Appreciate it.
No worries. Yeah. Okay, so that's what we got. So the simplification process, reduce comms, core team, optimize resource allocation. So this is what we're going to focus on. Is everybody okay with that?
Yes, sir.
All right. So
Yep.
now let's talk about it. within this current sprint, we're going to create an epic, and I just want to tasks that will inch us closer to executing on these ideas. So right now, I just kind of want to have everybody just kind of go around, throw out some ideas on what are some tasks that we can accomplish that are realistic within the next 2 weeks.
Restructuring comms.
Okay. How?
By setting up a core team, different functions, talk to transparency about how we're going to be handling the funds, maybe reduce it to less multi-sigs for the simplicity of it. I know that monthly payments are already a decision that has been made during the last week, so it would be pretty much just restructuring it around that, but instead of like serving the team's payments, the weekly or bi-weekly payments, we'll just go to like monthly payments for contributors for the communications core team.
Okay. Yep. So how about is there any other tasks?
I have two. Well, they are kind of related. One could be organizing roles in Discord. I think that could be really easy and could have an impact. And part of that is like maybe reorganizing the Discord server as a whole, like restructuring it and replanning it. Maybe that's kind of like a more complicated thing, but maybe we could initiate with like a cleanup of some sort. Yeah, just like maybe defining purposes for the channels. Yeah, basing on that, like start the restructure.
Okay.
I have something to well, as far as comms, one thing that I believe they could do is sort of fork sample, because I think sample has good documentation as far as the structure and setting up roles and stuff for their core team moving on. Other stuff that we could do, I believe, we can have a look at we can do over research, so for payments and stuff, and we can have a look at how other communities compensate people to move away from bounties and stuff, and also we can have a look at the master sheet to see how is the flow of money moving, and if we agree that that flow of movement is appropriate, and if there's anything to change about it. And overall, just check a lot of the working groups, because I believe there are a few that could do a bit better with a lot of things overall.
I'm gonna add. Yeah, go ahead.
I just have a question. In terms of forking sample for other working groups, do you imagine that would imply that we adopt clarity? Because I mean, it's a cool way of managing. I don't know if.
Well, I would encourage everyone to use clarity, because I really like it as a tool, but I guess it's highly dependent on the work that it's going to be made by the working group. Because, like, for example, transparency does not do an amount of work that requires such a tool, so probably I think for comms moving forward, it may be beneficial, because you can set up tasks and you can have notes and all of that in the same place, and but again, depends on the strategy. I don't know. It may be way too overkill if the strategy is too simple.
Yeah.
So I'll add a couple. Mine are going to be revisiting documentation. Each working group has a manifesto and agenda documents, and these things need to be reviewed, and making sure that we are up to date and reflective of current working group efforts. The second thing that I think would be really important in this area is creating a list of newcomer tasks. This is something that we've been wanting to do for a while. So each working group having a kind of a list of simple tasks that newcomers can do to just get engaged. So when somebody comes to your working group and wants to participate in some way, they have something to do and something to guide them on. And this is something that we really need to focus on. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I have two more.
Go for it.
Maybe creating a list of the different stakeholders of the TEC. Maybe one of them could be like a list of active contributors, like to kind of have an idea of like the size of the active community of the TEC. I think that could really help. And then like a list of possible partners, like a list of organizations in the ecosystem. Like have different lists of the different people interacting with the TEC could be helpful. And then the other one, I forgot. Oh yeah, revisiting like the calls, like the amount of calls we have, the type of calls we have. Yeah, just like scheduling. Yeah, and purpose of each of the calls, and trying to make it simpler, right? Trying to make it simple. That would be it.
Yep. We have any other ideas?
Yes, the research that I'm working on, the one that I suggested about, it would be framing our DAO as a holonic network. It'd really be like not only the DAO but also the contributors, the working groups, and also the larger ecosystem of other DAOs that we're closely associated with, such as One Hive, T Academy, such things like that. But yeah, it's the idea is to move away from the bounty system or the per hour system, and how it's compartmentalized or siloed, and integrate that into a whole that it can be reflective of the totality of our efforts, right? So
all right, I'm just I'm going each one and kind of describing what type of task it is.
Yes.
And that way we have kind of this.
Sorry, Nate, I have two more.
Yep.
One is from Gideon that I think maybe would be possible to start exploring this difference between a working group and an interest group. I think that would be really interesting to explore, that maybe not all working groups have as a purpose to like actually do some work and generate income, or like, but maybe we have some other working groups that are there more for like be spaces for people to join and to discuss ideas and to share a particular interest, right? So maybe to start exploring that would be something interesting. And the other one also might be complicated, might be not. I've been thinking a lot about it, and I think we could get to an MVP to start iterating on it, of reputation systems of some sort, like including badges. And I've heard that there's some efforts in Communitas with NT. I think he's working on something to do with the membership of the TEC. So maybe if it's not like complicated, this could be explored. Yeah, and I think it would be cool to have.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be having a look at Order Space in the upcoming weeks, which is a soul bone token kind of thing for reputation. But I wanted to add something like small note on the organization Discord server that I've been thinking about for a while, which is I think we could really use role gated channels. So like, I don't know, for contributors and stuff, that just select the working groups they are in and whatever, and they just see those channels instead of more clean and um, better information, but also as well for people that may not be interested in working but more on hanging out, and they don't have to see all of that mess. And yeah.
Yep. No, that's really awesome. So, does anybody else have any thoughts or ideas before we move forward? I will say this, for example, for other working groups, I think this is something that I want to challenge right now, just because I think, as it's been said before, other working groups will have, we want them to be completely autonomous, to operate how they like and how they fit the context of what their work is. And so Sampo is a great mission, but I think that, there are some universal practices like the manifesto and the documents that we can really focus on rather than, that area. So I'm going to delete that if that's okay. I think Bear, you mentioned it, or was it empty?
It was me. I guess it's okay, but to delete it. But I think it's important that they keep it present, because not like, for example, like copy sample. But I think we have also to take advantage of the knowledge that we have built on the TEC, and if they're working upon restructuring comms, there's a lot of things they can learn from how sample operates.
Okay, yeah, and so like, what aspects are you speaking strictly from sprint planning?
Yeah, I guess Gideon's been doing a really good job on just operating the working group, and also Chewy said something about core team, and so Sample has these great documentation on roles and what are the limits of the roles, and I think that's some stuff that can be looked into and really be used to their advantage, instead of having to start from zero, just thinking about how are they going to keep up with core team and other structures.
Okay. Yeah. So we have a large group of ideas here, and there's, each of us are here. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so there's 5 of us. So I really want us to choose maybe just one that you would like to execute on, or one that you want to do for the sprint, at least one. But yeah, if you feel like you have time to execute on 2 of them, I don't want anybody to select things that they're not going to have time for, because at the end next week, or the next 2 weeks, the sprint retrospective, I really want to go over and see what else needs to be worked on. But yeah, so this is kind of the thing. I'm going to open up our Zen Hub board, and I'm going to create this epic. Let's see. Create an epic. Okay, and then so if you want that, okay. So I would like for each of you to, I can actually add this later. Select the one you want to execute on. So we'll start off with I don't know, Manu. Is there one that you want to execute on, or 2 that you want to execute on?
Yeah, of course. The proposed model for compensation away from bounties, and evaluate how the flow of money and allocation of resources. I think I could cover both in a forum post.
So okay, so this one's the first one, and so so what is the forum post going to be on? So give me some details on exactly what you plan on putting forward.
Yeah, on utilizing the concept of holons, holarchies, and holon networks, and applying that to how our DAO, on the organization management and production of value of our DAO.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and you said you had another one.
It's actually Holarchies is HOLARCHIES.
CH.
HOLARCHIES.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. And you said you had another one here in this list?
Yeah, the evaluate how the flow of money allocation of resources.
Okay.
It goes into the first one. Sort of like the Holons, Holarchies, and Holonic network, like that model of production, it ties into both.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if you evaluate how the flow of money and how you allocate resources, then it's also a model of compensation, and the finality is to move away from bounty. So both of them are, yeah.
Okay, so this will all be just in one post.
Yes, sir.
All right, cool. All right, how about Bear?
Yeah.
Maybe I could take on the stakeholders list. I think I could take on that one. And in regards to the organizing roles in Discord, I think I heard Irem that she might be, I don't know if she already started or she might be starting to work on that. I could also maybe follow up on that with her, and I guess this is gonna be really related with the communities working group. So maybe just like follow up on that with her and that team. I could do that. And I guess it's like an initial step for the organizing the Discord server as a whole, right? So I guess it would be like part of that project, I guess.
Yeah, and so we'll keep that outside of the realm of that. So with the organizing roles in Discord, you're going to meet with IRAM, follow up with the community task group, and execute on defining what roles are in Discord. And then the stakeholders of the TEC list. What is the tangible thing that you're going to produce here? Just the list of active contributors, or?
Yeah, I think I think I would need to give it more of a thought, but I think one would be a list of active contributors, a list of partnerships that we currently have or potentially could have. And that's what I can come up now. If you guys have any other idea of an important list of people that we should be aware of, like, please let me know or add it in.
And could I add a task to that?
Yeah, sure.
Just to kind of develop ideas on what to do with these lists.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Okay. How about you, NT?
Cool. So the reputation systems, I'm kind of already on it. It's dependent on how the guys in order space move. I'm not sure if that's going to be, in these next 2 weeks. I hope so. What else? I'm keen to checking out also the structure of the Discord server. At least specifically the what I said about gated channels with roles and stuff, which is kind of similar to what I did for the Talking Gate channel. So I believe I can use a lot of the same research I did. And I'm keen to look at a few other things, but I don't feel comfortable.
Keep it simple. How you want it. So in these two realms, you have the exploring reputation systems. You want to do this as a forum post, right? Is that okay? Kind of like a proposal of like how we should, or kind of like an idea for how we should implement a reputation system through badges, POAPs, etc.
I mean, I can do the forum post, but this project is already sort of under sample/community, so I would probably have to, chat with Gideon and see how we do it. But there's going to be something, a node on Clarity or a forum post. So
Okay. Yeah. So the thing is like the part of the sprint planning as being separate than our individual working group is to kind of include the rest of the community. So even if we can share the idea with the rest of the community through the forum, that would be really great. But that is completely up to you. I'll let you decide how you work with that this sprint.
Yeah, I can probably put up something up on the forum. Yeah.
Okay. And then with this, the organizing Discord servers as a whole, do you want to just do the advice process for that, like through the forum, or do you want to, like, are you, what level? I know that you have been talking to people about this. I know that you've been working with Sampo about this. Is this something you can execute on? Do you need to talk to like 5IV or somebody who has access to the Discord server to modify it?
I would probably go first for the advice process, because all the work I did was specifically for the token holder channel, and I didn't thought of messing with the whole server, and I guess the advice process is more appropriate. And as far as executing, these things are usually quite easy, but require admin access to the server, which I don't have. So on that point, I would probably need someone else involved.
Okay. All right. How about you, Tui?
Yes, Nate. I'm gonna take the first one, restructuring comms. I'll take the lead on that, and also revisiting the documentation. Yeah, I think it might be a good time for new manifesto and just like documents around communications in general.
And for this one, will you have, okay, yep. And then the documentation one, where is it? So this one, yeah. So do you want to apply this to, do you want to go to make sure every working group revisits it? Or at least is aware?
I'll take a general look. I think that there are a few manifestos that are just like more recent, like Sampo, for example, or the Stewards manifesto. So I'll try to base it off something that is a little bit fresh, since most of the documentation around communications, it's just older.
Is that an accurate task right there? Evaluate manifestos and agenda documents, identify which ones need updating, and communicate to working group stewards. Yes. Okay, cool. Okay, and then I'm going to do I'm going to do the scheduling, the amount of calls we have. And then I'm going to do, where's the other one? Oh, the newcomer tasks. So, okay, so that is the list we have. I will go through and add this to our TEC Epic board. I will tag each of you in those tasks, and this is kind of this is the sprint that we're doing this time around, and I really want to thank you for partaking in this experiment with me. I know this wasn't as clean as it could be, but it's one of those things where I think as because we did this, the next sprint, I think we can improve on this design. And so, how does everybody feel about this process?
I can't compare it with how other spring plannings were made because I didn't attend a lot of I'd attend probably one or two, but I really like this. I feel like we made some concise progress, some tasks that we can execute upon on things that are easy and that we feel like are really necessary for the community. So yeah, feeling great. Thanks, Nate.
Yeah. So, anybody else have any comments on it?
Yeah. If you scroll a little bit down.
Yep.
Yeah, on the first bullet point of that page, it's Chuy's one. Yeah. No, the first sentence of the second page.
First sentence of the second page. Yeah.
Yeah, that one. Revisit documentation. Yeah, in evaluate manifest and agenda documents, I gotta update the marketing one. So
yeah,
in Chu evaluating the manifesto, it's gonna come up that I ought to update it. So I just rather get it out of the way or put it there in writing to be accountable for it.
Actually, Manu, let's work on the same document because I feel that if we can consolidate it into a same manifesto for all of the communications, it's gonna fall more under like a core team rather than marketing team or like this like specialized way of organizing things that we were doing.
Yeah, I agree. And then Twitter and marketing are merging, so it's yeah, I agree. Okay,
yeah,
so
and this is one of the things that I think we can cover. We'll cover within the sprint retrospective for these types of things. So we'll go over each task that was taken on by us during the sprint, and we'll say, we'll evaluate like what else needs to be executed in order to achieve the goal that we have within this idea, and we'll keep building onto it. So that is the concept of it. So like if you we'll evaluate like exactly what we did, what went wrong, what are the challenges, the obstacles, all that good stuff. So I think this is a really important aspect of it. But I really, if anybody has any feedback on this process, let me know, because this is one of those things where like if we don't either refine it or get support behind it, or it's going to die out. And so I just want to get feedback on it and see what could be improved or what you liked about it. So if you have any comments, no pressure either way.
Yeah. First of all, just to thank you, Nate, for taking like the initiative of reimagining the planning. I think it was really needed, and I really enjoyed the call because it felt more proactive. Like it was not just like listening to what others had to say, but I felt like really involved and really aware of the work and the ideas that were being discussed. So I think that just makes things more efficient, more productive, more fun as well, right? At the end, I feel more motivated to start working on this, and I think you were able to really get us from like big concepts or big issues that we had to tackle, and then just like really nail it down into really specific achievable tasks. So I don't think that's always easy to do as a facilitator. So yeah, I really give you that. Yeah, maybe something like as a feedback that I could provide is, I don't know if you had some ideas, or maybe this is more like on our own, that maybe there are some of these tasks that we might be interested in helping the other person, or like the let's call it like the leader or like the assignee on that. Maybe we want to support them or like contribute or somehow. So maybe that's more like to do it in our own, right? So just that, and also no, let's just leave it at that right now. Yeah, I think that would be.
Well, that's great feedback. I really appreciate that. Yeah, if anybody else has anything, let me know. Yeah, otherwise we'll end the call. All right, I'll give you 5, 4.
Yeah, I guess I want to second that. I myself that I've helped Tam lead or host some of the sprint planning. I think you did a great job, Nate, and it was very. I think we made a lot of progress in a short amount of time, and you sort of like went from a general approach and abstract ideas to very specific tasks and accountability to each of the person that got assigned to them. So great job.
Yeah.
And thank you.
No worries. I think we need to not be afraid of experimenting with this type of thing, and I want people to have ownership over what's going on, and I think that's the most important part of this, especially if we're restructuring into kind of a different pace and a different style. I just wanted to kind of explore this area. So thank you all for participating and bearing with me on that. So I will improve on the next iteration, and we will go from there. So I look forward to the sprint retrospective, and if anybody needs help with anything, let's talk to each other. So thanks, guys.
Thank you, Nate.
Thank you so
guys.
much, Nate.
Thank you, Nate. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Talk to y'all later.
Bye, everyone.